The thoughts, views, and comments expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on Beyond the Headlines are not necessarily those of management, ownership, or production unit of the Verizon Media Group. Beyond the Headlines is a production of ILTV Studios and cannot be reproduced or represented in part or entirety without express written permission of the Verizon Media Group. Beyond the Headlines is the intellectual property of the Verizon Media Group. Copyright 2021.
Coming up tonight, America has decided, voting in very convincing numbers for Donald Trump, making him that country's 47th president. Tonight, many around the world are rejoicing over America's decision. Lawmakers in Poland, for example, chanting Trump in Parliament today. People across Europe and the United Kingdom. Community leaders in Africa and Americans across the 52 states. Tonight, we look at what perhaps were the overwhelming factors that made Donald Trump outperform Kamala Harris in Democratic strongholds, including the all-important swing states. And today, social media began telling the story. Americans felt disrespected, dismissed, ignored, their rights trampled on, as if the control that is their constitutional right violated over the past 4 years. By the people they elected to represent their interests. Well, tonight, as I do an election recap, I look at key areas like illegal immigration and open border policy, unsafe neighborhoods, crime, inflation, and the cost of living, abortion, LGBTQ rights that Americans felt were unaddressed, and some, well, addressed too many times, pushing them and their support to the Republican Party and Donald Trump. And so this evening, welcome to Beyond the Headlines. It's good to have you along. I'm Shanique Miller. Good evening. Well, it was an historic win for Donald Trump, who won the popular vote and gained the most electoral college votes as well in the 2024 election in the United States. Perhaps this sums up just what Americans were looking for in the individual that would steer the nation in a different direction. Here's what we're talking about.
You got a point of view about Donald Trump?
Well, you know, Donald Trump is what Americans love. Donald Trump is what Americans aspire to be. Rich, powerful, do what you want to do, say what you want to say, be how you want to be. That's kind of been like the American dream. So he looks like a boss to everybody, and Americans love to have a boss. So
you have it. In fact, that was sent to me by someone who watched the election closely and also developed very similar opinions as well. Now, tonight we are going to get started in our discussion. I mentioned several key areas that were very important to Americans and that hoping that the Biden administration got right. You heard about the open border situation where thousands of illegal immigrants came in. In fact, many people talked about the criminal element that also came in along with those illegal immigrants, say, for example, from Venezuela, where gangs came in and took over various apartment complexes. Many parents talked about the violent crime in their areas, just so much in terms of what Americans say they wanted to see that they did not see. And so this evening, we're going to get started. In this segment, we're going to look at some of those key areas and perhaps how they will affect the Bahamas. You heard Donald Trump vow that if he were to be elected, what he would do is begin repatriation exercises in getting the illegal immigrants, particularly those with the criminal element, out of the United States. So what does it all mean for us? Exactly, and we will be watching very closely. So welcome to Beyond the Headlines, Leslie Miller and Ellington Ferguson. Good evening to you both. Welcome to Beyond the Headlines.
Good evening, Shanique. Good evening, Bahamas. It's a pleasure to be here once again.
Well, gentlemen, I want to begin first by asking, I mean, where do you think, you all watched from here, as before we came on air last night, and of course you went home and you watched the results and the returns as they came in, and you saw how that shaped up and how it continued just for the remainder of the evening until the winner was declared. What do you suppose happened that the Democratic Party somehow lost the favor of the American people?
Shanique, I think for starters, the Democratic people, the Democratic Party took the American people for granted, and they have done so for a long time. I think the people spoke loud and clear. The Democratic people is trying to steer America in a direction that Americans generally did not want to go. And I think now they realize that, number one, they really had no message. There are things that they were espousing to for Americans. Americans rejected it. The things that they had on their platforms, such as genders, gay agenda, works and all that type of stuff, bathrooms and children not needing their parents' consent to change their sexuality and all of that type of stuff. America ignored that. The immigration issue with people being able to flood the country, and those same people come in, they didn't need a ID, people not needing IDs to vote. What are you saying to the country? That anybody should be able to allow to vote with an ID? What is the agenda? Why are you allowing millions of people to cross into the border of the country? What's up with that? And so Americans rejected all of that. Americans been telling them for 4 years that is not what they want. Trump message resonate with the people that this is something that he's going to deal with. He's going to expel immigration. And the truth is, anyone else who, you can't fault the man for wanting to clean up his country. Of course, that's going to have some rippling effect for the Bahamas. But we've got to do what we should have done long time. So you can't fault him for fixing his country. He's not governing for the Bahamas. He's governing for America.
Absolutely, the way he was elected to do just several hours ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Leslie, your thoughts on perhaps where the Democratic Party missed it?
I don't know whether they missed it. I think what has happened, you know, President Trump, elect again, ever since he lost the last election, he was just lying and lying and lying again. You know, saying it wasn't true. And, you know, America's a strange place. I grew up in America, went to high school there, went to college. And Trump brought out the best and the worst in them. They want to feel good that you can be prejudiced, you can be a racist, and it's fine. First of all, there wasn't no open borders to begin with. And nobody voted in America that wasn't an American citizen. That was proven over and over in the courts.
Well,
the
Leslie,
Republicans took 38 cases to court and won one.
Leslie, we're talking about just yesterday. That was reported, Leslie. It was reported, whether or not it was true or not, it was reported that the California governor told people to come there without their IDs and they can vote. That was reported. It's on record.
No, sir.
It's on record, Leslie.
That is not true.
I'm telling you, it's true. But let's move on. Go ahead.
Won last night.
Leslie, go ahead.
We got to live with it. Let's hope something good happens for the Bahamas.
No. You're going to go ahead.
That is the problem.
Yes.
We've been generalizing statement. We've been taking statements.
Because you don't believe the guy lies.
We've been taking the statements from these mainstream media and talking these things about he lied. They've spent,
Leslie, let him make his point.
the better part of 8 years trying to destroy this man. They spent his whole term after office. Once they realized he intended to run again, they set to destroy him just so that he can't run again. Okay? Now that he's won, those who've been trying to prosecute him, all of a sudden, they're dropping cases right away, and they're planning to leave. They're planning to leave from the job all of a sudden. Because they know now, as the president, he have access to certain information, can see certain things. They spend his whole time trying to impeach him, as much work as he's done. Nobody, yes, and they spend the whole time going after him. Yet still, none of them done more for black, racists, none of them done more for black colleges in the United States than this president. None.
Well,
it's on the record, Leslie.
Americans
and you
have
can't ignore record.
How many black Bahamians was into a tyrannical fella like Trump? He's not a president. I respect him as such. And we should see what can happen.
Governments, and we have it right here in the Bahamas,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to blame people when governments lose elections. Governments must now begin to listen, pay attention
Well,
to
see,
the
and that
needs
is what-
and concerns of their citizens.
Ellington, you make a great point because
What-
that was
what-
the
what are these concerns that the
narrative. That was the
Democrats didn't-
narrative on social media today. See, you've got to go several places to be informed nowadays. Social media has become the mainstream media, and where people speak freely of their thoughts. And so people across the United States, white, black, and other, talked about the fact that they felt ignored, invisible, that they were no longer important.
Did you hear the
and
term-
their thoughts,
Did you
Leslie,
hear
and
the
this
term
is
that
where,
the
but I want to
non-elected
know.
Vice President said last
wait
night
a-
with Kamala Harris?
But wait a minute, I want to know
Call it
what
garbage?
Bahamian. Leslie, where you got that
Yes, I
from?
love that.
Leslie, where you got that from?
That's what he said last night.
Joe
on television.
Biden called-
I said that's what he. No,
Joe Biden
You know that was not what he meant when he said that.
Oh
you
gosh!
knew that.
So how you could determine who mean what?
The man said it last night.
Anyways, let's move on. As I was saying, Americans today, just today, hours after the 2024 vote, just today, are largely on social media talking about why they voted how they voted. Some of them, for the very first time, they even looked in the direction of the Republican Party. I also want to know, what does this mean for leaders here, who people feel may not be listening? The Americans felt as though you went into another area, Ellington, about LGBT. Well, that's just one area. But let's talk about inflation and not being able to afford housing. Doesn't it sound all familiar? Not being able to afford housing or rent.
98% of what
and
you
so
what
and
you
so
use,
let's talk about
what you
how
expect.
that was important for them.
Absolutely. And the economy, and people spoke about the economy. People said they were living better when Trump was in office.
But
they
that,
had
that
more.
was in Obama's economy that he left it.
So,
Go ahead, go ahead.
so again, hold on, give me a second, Leslie. We continue to do this. So it was an Obama economy, what Obama left. I had argument with other people who says the economy was better under Biden. You believe that too?
Under Biden? Realize now.
Because now then you got to say, was that Trump's economy from where he left? You can't have your cake and eat it too.
Listen,
that's
no,
my point.
That's the
cannot have your
argument
cake
what they
and eat it
want.
too.
But
Oh,
but
what
I don't
they
want
talking
us
about?
to fight in here among
Now,
each other.
wars are going on.
We are here to
You
this
had COVID
and
that
again.
came
So then
along.
Leslie here, you mentioned wars. The Americans felt because of an incompetent leadership style that those wars
Springing up all over the
began
place.
as embers and became now flames that's now burning in the Middle East and
Palestinians-
between Russia
the Palestinians
and
could not forget life,
between Russia and
the
Ukraine.
Palestinians could not forget life. They treat them like dogs before the war. They can treat them worse than dogs.
Because
now.
Iran
Because
was
Trump is
empowered.
Right there with him. Obama was the power doing a damn thing.
Iran was empowered.
They met the people there in 1947.
Iran
Traced them out of
was
their home
empowered
and
to
refused to
fuel
give them their own
Hamas
land.
and to fund Hamas. They gave
Refused.
Iran money that was seized. They released the money when they came in.
That was Iran money.
Give it to
That was
Iran.
Iran oil
It was
money.
seized.
That was their money.
Why America
But
was
you
holding
can't
it?
take my money.
Why was
America
it
does
being
to
for
every
good
damn
purpose?
small country in the world.
Well,
they wouldn't take it
their
from Russia,
assets around
and
the
they
world were
wouldn't take it from
seized.
China.
So now they're funding terrorists
Okay, they
to
were
go
funding
after
on
Israel.
terrorists. What you
Now,
call terrorists, they
war
call heroes.
is springing up everywhere.
Listen, hold on.
The
See, you're coming
Ukraine
to
war.
terrorist
Let's go to
foolishness.
Ukraine. Let's go to Ukraine.
Yeah.
The Ukraine
What
war.
happened there?
The Ukraine war is a war that sprung up because America wanted to play chess and move their machinery on the front door of Putin.
Not America.
America. The NATO.
Not America.
NATO.
Yeah,
NATO, yes.
NATO.
Which
NATO,
America,
the Western world.
which America is the biggest funder.
Yeah.
And that's why Trump pulled the funds from it when he was in the last time. Because he said he's tired of America funding and the rest of the nations not carrying their weight.
Yes.
Okay, that's why he pulled it. And so they were set up on the
All y'all from
Biden, set up
Mississippi?
a
Y'all
whole
from
base
Mississippi?
in the man front door, and Putin would not allow it. You would not allow it. None of us would not allow
So
it.
what's going to happen
And
now?
so Putin understands that that is not Trump's run.
What's
And
gonna
so when
happen
Trump
now?
appealed to him to pull back, watch that war come to an end.
And what is going to
Watch
happen?
it come
and
to an
What
end.
is going to happen to the country that he's invading now?
He'll have no
They
interest
would
in
get
doing
half
it.
back.
He will have
They
no.
wouldn't get half of it
He
back.
will have no interest in invading
wouldn't
it
have no what?
because America is not trying to set up on the Trump administration on his doorstep.
What about the Palestinians?
So another,
still-
but Leslie, we'll see how that all plays out.
humans know how, right?
We'll see how that all
They
plays
still
out.
want to fight because they're still holding hostage, even American hostage. So as long as you engage in
You
me,
held them
you
hostage
still
in
want to fight.
1947.
We will see how it
From
all plays out.
1947.
So listen,
Them
gentlemen,
hostages
let's
from
move this
1947.
on. Let's move this forward, right? Certainly, of course, we know other issues. Abortion. It was felt as though that, listen, the abortion issue was unnecessary as abortions happened. And in fact, in fact, I think it may have been rejected. The whole because it was built around the fact that, listen, a woman's right and a woman's to protect those rights. Yeah. The thing is, those rights are there. People felt as though was that sort of a necessary effort to pour all that energy into.
Again, in Florida, after 6 weeks, you cannot abort. Again, after 6 weeks in Florida,
not a healthy baby.
And many other states.
Shanique, you go right in Florida today, and I checked it out before I came to this show. If there is a real issue that threatens the life of a mother,
you certainly can.
You're not going to find
you certainly can have abortion. What they were trying to prevent is people wanting to get rid of a live
just showing up to have abortion.
9 months. 7, 8, 9 months. A live child that, in order for it not to be murder, you perform it halfway in the womb, pull the baby's brains out, late-term abortion. That is what it's called.
Listen, we are just getting started. We are just getting started tonight as we do a recap. Listen, and this was supposed to be, in fact, what this is supposed to be is a recap of the issues that Americans found most interesting for them. We're going to get back online and in alignment in the next segment. I know it. I absolutely know it. But listen, this is how hard it was, even in the United States and elsewhere. You would think everybody had a hand in and a voice and a vote. But again, what America does and what happens there affects the entire world. Certainly one of its closest neighbors here, the Bahamas. We're going to take a break and come back with more Beyond the Headlines after this.
Cancer Treatment Centers of America is now City of Hope, creating one of the leading cancer care and research networks from coast to coast, providing more of what you need. More locations means more care closer to home. More specialists means more expertise. More research means more breakthroughs. More advancements means more treatment options. And more options means more hope. Call now to get more of the care you need.
Why this car break up? This car dirty and the car place right across from this dude, 0 down.
At Montague Motors, we offer a wide variety of vehicles for an affordable price.
Well, look at you, man. This is a brand new car. I can't talk to you no more.
Montague Motors is located on Village Road North, just before the Shirley Street stoplight.
Get ready to win Lucky Bucks. Wherever you see this taxi, flag it down.
The boy hard, beating so hard, man. I will be hard. I'm looking for my first contestant to ride in the Lucky Taxi. You walk in the taxi, you got to do the Lucky Walk, Oh, thanks. Man, thank you, sir. 85 times 2 is how much, brother? You only win $170, brother.
I never expected to win as much as I win.
Very excited when the gentleman picked me to ride inside the taxi.
So if I had to choose a game that would stay, it would be Island of Taxi.
You could be next on the Island Lucky Taxi.
Edenwell has expanded their testing menu. We now offer blood work, drug screening, and so much more. Our hours of operation are Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., located on 11 Madera Street. We are here for all of your laboratory needs, with fast and reliable lab work done by our friendly and knowledgeable staff. Let us help you take the needed steps to stay in the know about your health. Let's keep working towards a healthier you. Stay Eden well.
Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. Tonight, we are continuing our recap of the 2024 U.S. elections. Of course, you all know Donald Trump has been elected, or the president-elect of the United States. He takes office in January, the inauguration. I wonder who's going. I know many Bahamians, listen, you would really think that Bahamians have voted, but many Bahamians plan on certainly making the trek to Washington in early January for the inauguration. However, now, let's just continue moving. Welcome to Beyond the Headlines in this segment, Mandel Miller and Michael Turnquest. Gentlemen, good evening to both of you.
Good evening, Shanique. Good evening, Bahamas.
Good evening, Bahamas.
It's good to have you both here. Listen, first of all, your thoughts about the outcome of last night's vote or yesterday's vote?
Well, last night, as my prediction was, I think Kamala would have come out victorious. I think the Americans voted, and basically, if you see what had happened, I think a lot of it was a vote against Biden. I think people more so, and then again, like you say, so it's issues as well. People were more concerned about the economy. It seems that they were more concerned about the, the borders and things. That was the two main things that persons voted on. And, you saw when you saw Kamala losing that, they call it the wall, the Democratic blue wall. That blue wall in terms of Detroit and things that, the blue collar workers where Biden would have made promises that those areas, in Detroit, he was double figures last election, and all of a sudden, Kamala, you see she was defeated horribly in that area. And then when you came around to California, in certain counties, she started, you saw where she started losing what they call, blue states. And I think that was kind of, the voters spoke. At the end of the day, you saw where I think that's Ice Cube, he said, everybody wants to feel, even look at the markets this morning, the stock markets.
The markets rallied tremendously.
And people just feel as though, I guess, with a Donald Trump at the head, you have a better economy. The markets spoke to it this morning in terms of, what you saw him shoot up by, I don't know, it was double figures.
Over 30 or 40,000 points, yeah.
But, like I said, it's shocking. In my view, but at the end of the day, the Americans are Americans. I think right now I have to focus on, the issues at hand that we have here and hope that, politicians in the Bahamas or I would say parties in the Bahamas start listening to what the real issues of what Bahamians are going through.
But Michael, that they watched. You see, because the story sometimes the mainstream media don't tell, social media tells vividly, because everybody has a phone or a device that they go on and they speak. And this is where I gathered this information from when I saw today, in vast numbers, people of varying race. For example, we saw the Amish community come out. They too felt ignored and invisible. We saw the Latinos, Latinos and black men. Tremendous support behind Trump. We saw, of course, the Arab community. I'm not sure if that's how you call them. What I'm saying is Muslim community, I think is perhaps the better word. But many of them felt the same issues you mentioned, that, listen, why ignore these issues and try pick up on those ones and make those sort of the thing that you are running on? I want to know, what is it and what can our leaders pick up and learn from this? Because the thing is, when you don't listen to people, one person said that I saw today out of quite a number say, no, Americans stop talking. And Americans just watch and say, oh, this is what you think you're going to be doing to our children, to our income, to inflation, that they can't afford to go to the store and shop comfortably. Say, okay. And this is what helped them make their decision.
I think if you see the last election in the Bahamas, you saw people came to the polls when Dr. Minnis was the leader at that time. They came in very quietly, they do what they had to do, and they leave. We're now starting to see a trend in that. When you look at, we've been talking for the last year, cost of living, taxes, things that are what Bahamians are feeling in their pockets. And it seems as though nobody is actually listening. You talk about immigration has been for the past year, a big topic of conversation in terms of, something in some of the family islands where you see things getting out of control and Bahamians are complaining and saying, hey, we need to do something about it. But right now, the biggest complaint in the Bahamas, as you can see, is the economy, the cost of living. Bahamians just can't afford to go to the grocery store, get what they can't. You look at the housing situation. Bahamians are going more and more, they're actually homeless. Now you look at the jobs, and we talk about increasing minimum wage, things of that sort. All of this is what's going to affect the Bahamian people, because at the end of the day, if I close my business, you close your business, people then are more out of jobs, the employment rate goes up. So these are things when we talk about bringing all the stakeholders to the table and saying, you know, let's have a discussion in terms of how can we either bring down the cost of living, how could we, you know, make people's lives, whether it be livable wage, which we spoke about last night, and just try to see how we can do better for the Bahamian economy, that being more importantly the people of that actually make up the economy, which is, as we go back again, the middle class. You know, how do we get back to increasing the middle class and basically...
To growing the middle class again.
And that's been a dying class for the past over a decade. And nobody is actually paying attention to it and just basically finding out ways to how do we, I think we want to demolish it. So we have to listen. If one thing you want to learn from what came out of yesterday's U.S. presidential election, we have to listen to our people, listen to their cries, and listen to even the small, medium, middle class, but whatever's left of it.
You may feel are the insignificant ones,
right.
Mandel. You've got to listen to them all because they speak when it comes to casting their ballots.
You know, Shanique, for me, my takeaway from last night's experience has been that there's clearly a shift in the maturity of our voters, in terms of, or in the understanding of our voters, in terms of, I think we've come through an era where it's about who sells the best message. And I think we're now past that, and there's a shift has taken place, not taking place, the shift has already taken place where voters are no longer buying the day-to-day mainstream media rhetoric that they hear spewing out there. Like you say, social media is playing a very vivid and transparent part of electoral processes around the world.
Yeah.
And so
it
you're
helps
no
you
longer
either
able...
win the election or lose it.
If you look at Kamala's her speech and you look at the amount of young people that attended that speech and that listened, I mean, you look at young voters actually at tears crying. You know, I spoke to my niece who voted yesterday and asked her, you know, I didn't really ask her how did she vote, but did you vote? And she basically said, hey, I voted on issues. I voted on the Senate side. I looked at Democrat, Republican, what each individual is actually talking about. How does it help me as a young person? And you know, back to what Mandel said, young voters are becoming very different
focused. Listen to me, and I'll let you finish right now, Mandel, because they're also becoming very in tuned. I saw as well, and just researching and trying to find as much material and examples of different people's thoughts today on a college campus last night when the final announcement was made, I guess, and then the winner declared. University campuses in the United States, their students were running around shouting because they felt empowered. Who knew that they were paying attention at 18 and 20?
You see, for me, Shanique, I decided as a Bahamian for some time back now, a few elections back, to outgrow the emotionalism that's normally tied to elections and start to understand it from a more point of view that I could digest, that to say this is the truth of what happened. And I've learned that the numbers in elections do not lie. If you follow the numbers, you kind of gain an understanding of why people leaned a certain way or why so and so won because of what these people were thinking. And so if you look at even the way the US election was set up in terms of the issues, the Democratic campaign ran a campaign on strictly about Donald Trump. And not the issues. Meanwhile, Trump has been, over the last 2 years, being strong, whether you like it or not, how he goes about disseminating his message. He is being vocal on the touch point issues that the average voter is concerned about.
And
I hope that is something.
Aren't they ringing through right here in the Bahamas? Many of those same issues?
That's my hope in our next, because I say we're next in line now. So my hope is that the leaders of tomorrow or today decide to speak to the issues that are touch point to the Bahamian and not over our heads, not spew the rhetoric to us and hope that we just buy it or who sells the best message. But understand that the average voter has shifted to where people are voting based on what have you done for me lately? How is my pocket feeling in the midst of what's going on? And so as I started to approach tonight, I wanted to not go based on how I felt, but based on the American people that voted. And I encourage anybody to go there and check the exit pollings and see what people had to say. Despite the fact of them being concerned about Donald Trump, the large majority of the people who were concerned about Trump actually actually still voted for Trump. Why? Because they're disenfranchised with what they have been getting lately from the Democrats. And the Democrats continue to give them more and more of the rhetoric about Trump, more about the fear-mongering. And it was on both sides in terms of the fear-mongering and what was taking place. And so my prayer and hope is that we realize that the electorate is somehow beyond policy and beyond character, because it can't get no worse of a candidate than the former President Trump.
They don't care, because if you heard the gentleman, one second, Michael, if you heard him, what he said that's what they're looking for. In fact, there's a quote that I took and I wanted to share. I wrote it from today. It shows that the world now wants and needs a tough, stern, say it like you mean it, and get the job done type of leadership and leader.
Touch point.
But I think what'll even be more interesting to actually look at the demographics of voters in terms of the ages, in terms of who voted for who in the presidential race. I think right now, there's still numbers that are coming out. And I think at the end of the day, when we look at, who would have voted in terms of the demographics, in terms of whether it be the ages, whether they're in school or in they're graduates or in school or not, I think that would be interesting to take a look at, and I think we can mirror that and put that right here in the Bahamas and say, this is how our electorate is going to comprise in terms of people going to the polls. Because we had, remember, some two decades ago or 2 elections ago, you could barely get young people to the polls. They were coming out of high school or coming out of college and had no interest. No. Oh, I'm not bothered with that. Now you have people that actually, they're doing their research. Anything that come out your mouth, they're going to go back and they're going to fact check you. They're going to basically say, okay, how is this? What is the legislation looks like in terms of who would have implemented it? A lot of things are being done differently in terms of when you have young, educated voters coming to the poll, because they are doing, they're checking the facts. They're coming and saying, hey, well, you can't just walk up on them doing in your campaign trail or at their house and say, just spill a spew of lies and say, yeah, this is what we did, this, that, the next. And I guarantee you go to a knock on some of these young people's doors, they're going to say, no, that's not so. I've followed it, I'll tell you here's what, and they'll pull out the documentation and show you. So I think you have to be very careful, and you have to know what it is that, especially talking to young people, what it is that you're bringing, a plan, they're looking for a plan, and how you're going to execute that plan.
Because whether you be young or not so young, everyone now is looking for someone who can clearly give an example or policies of how you're going to help them get from here to there.
And you have to have a track record. And what's your track record?
And what's your track record in doing this?
Yeah.
And you, again, you heard the Ice Cube say, but not only him, if you look across the internet today, and really for the last several weeks, you see people saying this. Listen, we are tired. And it's stunningly, we didn't understand, Mandel and Michael, that inflation had hit America so hard, that they are having issues with rent and apartments and homes and mortgages and income and buying food and being able to afford food. And so therefore all of this made them quite angry.
Shanique, I want to show you that shift in terms of what we're talking about and how we even need to recognize some of the changes that are taking place right in the front of our eyes. You didn't see much Trump did not make a deal about the huge rallies, about size and all of that stuff. And like Michael alluded to just now, a number of young people, I talk about scores and scores and scores of young people came out in support of President Harris. Traditionally, we've normally said that young people decide most elections. However, in this U.S. election, it was the 45 to 65 age bracket that was the deciding factor.
They've been hit hardest.
Exactly. And so again, despite the discouragement that people, I believe, who were the deciding 8% factor of the elections, despite how they felt about both candidates, people still leaned more with Trump based on their whether experience or and in most cases experience when it comes to the economy. Like Michael alluded to, the Dow opened up 1,200 points on over this morning. They said that was the first time in the last 2 years that they had seen that. When it comes to immigration, again, Trump has been, and say what you like about how Mr. Trump goes about his messaging. At the end of the day, is it an issue that people have a problem with? And again, when I check the facts, the exit pollings, Americans are feeling the same way we here at home are feeling in some ways about international coming into our country and overloading our schools and healthcare system and social service. Americans are feeling the same pinch, and you're not hearing it from one side. And so in a lot of instances, again, the rhetoric, the push on trying to make voters believe a certain thing, I think we've passed
Voters
that
aren't
era.
buying it.
But we
voters
have, I mean,
aren't-
at the end of the day,
listening for
you're going to have to
themselves.
knock on doors this election.
But at the end of the day, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what policies they implement and how it affects the Bahamas. Because at the end of the day, we have to live in this little place, what we call home, and we just need to make sure it affects us in positive ways, and hopefully, you know, we don't feel any negative impact from the policies that they start to implement.
You know, normally they say when the Republicans are in power, the Bahamas
smiles.
thrive.
The Bahamas
Well, that's, you know,
smiles,
And
exactly.
once money moving, we are always
Yeah, well,
positioned.
Absolutely, because the last Republican administration, which was Trump, the Bahamians were happy, and Americans were happy.
But
so
you know,
again, we will watch.
and don't
we will
forget
see.
global warming.
Yeah, no, that's something.
I believe that one could be a fight for him.
That is something he doesn't believe in and support. But again, we will see how it all works out because it's something that happens at the United Nations and various other agencies. So we'll see how that works out. Gentlemen, I thank you both very, very
Thank
much.
you, Shanique.
We
Thank
are
you,
moving
Bahamas.
along this evening, and when we come
Man, you're
back,
hot today, boy.
listen, no, scorching, absolutely. When we come back, we will hear some other views. Yeah, you guessed it. Those two pastors, they will join me next to talk about what their thoughts on the outcome of the election are, and also perhaps what they thought were some of the deciding factors. Beyond the Headlines is backward after this.
What you doing? Where you at? We got a code that you can crack. With Island Luck, you can win. $1 million. 7 digits, 0 to 9. You could redeem your promo points online. You should be guessing and not stressing. Could be $1 million in your possession. No need to question what's happening. We just made up some games to try to get you some money that'll make it alright. So if you wanna change your life, crack the code and stop joking. Crack the code and stop joking. Crack the code and stop joking, yo. Crack the code and stop joking. If you guess the numbers right, no more stressing. We'll be ballin' tonight, baby. We can make your dreams come true. Play Crack the Code today. Win $1 million only on Island Luck.
Tired of driving around from place to place just to get your car insured and licensed? Frustrated with the process of being back and forth from your insurance company to road traffic? Well, BMG Insurance Agents and Brokers just made insuring and licensing your motor vehicle as easy as 1, 2, 3. Step 1. Visit us at the Road Traffic Department, Section 1, Thomas A. Robinson Sports Stadium. At our office, you can purchase or renew your insurance or get your vehicle inspected. We at BMG Insurance Agents and Brokers represent major carriers. Step 2. See the professionals at Road Traffic to get your vehicle licensed. Step 3. Enjoy your day. Insure with BMG Insurance Agents and Brokers today, saving you time and money. Your one-stop shop for all of your insurance needs. Great rates, convenient, excellent service. For more information, call us at 322-2221.
So you want a space. But not just any space. You need something with a little more potential. So how about 1,000 square feet of room to play with? Superb audio and video production capability, digital LED wall, full lighting grid, and about 124 seats to accommodate a full studio audience with so many other features. Make us your home for your next concert, conference, and so much more. Honestly, the possibilities are endless. Here at ILTV Studios, we'd love to bring your next event to life. So what do you say? Do you want our space?
Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. It's good to have you here tonight. On this show, we are recapping and sort of doing some analysis on the U.S. elections and maybe what can the Bahamas learn? I mean, you all saw the huge shift in voter appetite and what they were interested in and why they voted the way they voted. Many of you, of course, have seen it because you obviously stay on the various social media platforms that where people freely speak and share their views. And so we'll pick up and we'll hear some other thoughts and opinions about the outcome of the U.S. election. Please welcome Pastors Patrice Smith and Carol Moss. Ladies, good evening to both of you. It's great to have you here. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Shanique. Good evening, Bahamas. Good evening.
Well, listen, just give me your first impression about the outcome of the 2024 U.S. presidential elections.
Well, of course, Shanique, I think everybody probably know where I stand as it pertains to President Donald J. Trump. As a matter of fact, I am most certainly preparing to go to the inauguration. My nephew, my sister's son, lives there. And of course, I'm going to have a time because he's a Democrat and I'm a Republican.
That's going to be quite interesting. So you are going to the inauguration.
Honey, and I'm going with I got my MAGA hat. Somebody sent it to me. I'm going in my Trump t-shirt. I'm flying out of the Bahamas with my Trump t-shirt and my MAGA hat. And I will be at the inauguration. But anyway, Shanique, I'm not surprised, to be very honest with you. I'm not surprised at the results of the U.S. elections. I'm not surprised for three reasons. And if you give me a moment, I'd go ahead and state those reasons. The first reason is that I do believe that the Democratic Party's agenda is in direct opposition to the Word of God. And I got to speak from this perspective being a pastor.
Correct.
The agenda of the Democratic Party in the United States of America is totally against the Word of God. That's the first thing. So I do believe the evangelicals that came out really made a statement in this election that we are not going to have whatever it is you're trying to push down our throats. Secondly, the Democratic Party has taken on the position of the slave owner. And they've become very arrogant, not just in their acquisition of the minority vote or the black vote in particular in the United States, but they've become very possessive and very bullish to the point where we saw Obama scolded black American men and told them, don't think about what you're supposed to do. Let me tell you what you're supposed to do. So Obama took on the spirit of the slave master. That's the second thing.
Yes. I don't want to interrupt because you tend to go.
Yes, go ahead.
But that angered so many black American men.
And alienated them. Yes, most certainly. And then, of course, his wife joined him with him. It reminded me of Ananias and Sapphira. But anyway, the third, I trying to get spiritual because Leslie's starting to read his Bible. And so the third thing, I met Leslie reading his Bible, y'all. But anyway, the third thing more than anything else is that we have to understand that, yes, democracy is necessary, but even in democracy, you have to have guardrails. And there's no such thing as absolute freedom. That doesn't exist. And so the agenda that Kamala Harris wanted to push seemed to be an agenda without guardrails. So children now can be transitioned through transgender surgery without the parent being told, or a child can say to their guidance counselor or their teacher, I feel like I'm a boy even though I'm a girl, and the parent is not informed.
On social media again today, I saw a lot of narratives as far as that's concerned.
Yes.
Parents were angry.
That's exactly right.
Including men.
Absolutely.
Saying, you know what? This is what you get for pushing that and making us feel that we have no right to our children.
That's exactly right. So the state has no right to your children unless you have neglected your responsibility. Anything and that's another thing. Big government causes great problems. And so the United States, in particular, the Democratic Party, believes in the expansion of big government. That can never work. Because whenever government expands beyond its normal reaches, then it moves into tyranny, dictatorship, and all kind of evils. And so those are the three things, most certainly, that I believe caused Kamala Harris's defeat. The most important one, again, number one, is that her agenda And I am surprised at the amount of, and I'm going to take it in the church. I'm surprised at the amount of church pastors in the United States that were supporting Kamala Harris, that were warring with one another, in particular, Bishop Morton and Bishop McClendon. They were going back and forth. It angered me.
Oh, really?
It shocked me and it bothered me. Yes, of course. There was a big going back and forth on social media between these two men of God. Men of God, how can you put Kamala Harris? You don't know if she's saved. I don't think she's ever come out and really personally admitted or confessed that she has a relationship with God. How can you put her above your brother in the gospel? And again, I say, and I'm going to say it and put myself out on the limb, any minister, pastor, or leader of a congregation that could support the agenda of the Democratic Party, in particular that of Kamala Harris, her first agenda or her first thing that she was running on was that abortion, or what they call women's reproductive rights and freedoms, most certainly should be something that the government should not interfere in. And then secondly, they were most certainly trying to push this transgender LGBTQIA. Listen here. Well, I want to release a word to those of you of that community here in the Bahamas. I got a word coming up for you all in a little bit.
Let Carol speak.
Good night, Bahamas.
Yes.
My thing was, I thought and think that the Americans spoke.
Yes.
I think that they came out in droves and they spoke. I believe that Kamala Harris had no real plan, no real message.
Right.
And she targeted a bunch of rebellious people.
Jezebel women.
Who had a demonic agenda for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very selfish. And my thing is, Shanique, Jamal Bryant, and a few evangelicals and pastors had her in the church.
Right.
Now, how can any pastor support Kamala Harris based on the views that we preach against?
Right. Why wouldn't they have her in the church?
We preach against abortions. We preach against homosexuality. We preach against all the things that Kamala Harris believes in.
Absolutely.
How can you be a man, a woman of God, and stand against God and say you are for God?
And put her in that pulpit, what is supposed to be the pulpit of God.
Every gay person came out on yesterday supporting her because they believed she was going to win. But the American people who stand for, who has a moral compass, like how Donald Trump stands for, spoke for the American people and spoke against Kamala Harris. I'm against our government. I mean, I support women. I love women. She's black. I'm all for it. But her moral compass is off.
Absolutely.
It's off completely.
Absolutely.
And she would have drove America into the garbage. She would have perverted America, our children, our upcoming generation. And to me, I'm so glad America spoke. The ones who were quiet, who said nothing, their vote came up as a unanimous decision that Donald Trump was the man for the job.
That's it.
Ladies, I'll tell you that that election was also based on something that is also that Bahamians are experiencing, and that is inflation. The cost of living is hurting a number of families. We saw just earlier this week a study by the University of Bahamas that said, in order to be considered, first of all, the middle class has shrunk significantly here in the Bahamas. We perhaps have about maybe, I don't know, a 1%, 1 to 2%.
It's a dying class.
Of the working population that sort of fit into that category. But you must be earning, it is said, about $10,200 to just comfortably get by. For the United States, that's hugely important as well, inflation. You all, what do you think when you sort of look at the two and compare it? You hear the stories over there, you hear the stories here. What are your thoughts about how even here in the Bahamas, we must pull up our socks and that must be addressed? People said, listen, we feel ignored, we feel invisible, we felt dismissed, we felt as though you did not matter because, after all, they felt the Biden administration just catered to a certain demographic. So what are your thoughts about that? And even as you sort of kind of marry it to what's at play here?
Trump, Shanique, I think the last guest that spoke, Trump gave out something, and the middle class and the lower class recognize Trump can fight for them, even as us who don't have it. So I do believe that that the economic class, the lower and middle class, Trump is able to help those poor people because I believe he has a heart. Not just that, I believe he's grown. You can hear he's matured. He's grown, and he's elevated. And for that, I choose him as the president for the United States.
Shanique, I want the takeaway. I think that the government here in the Bahamas, the Progressive Liberal Party, because they are the they're leading the government here in the Bahamas. I think the takeaway that they need to take from what happened in the United States is that, listen, you can no longer take the people for granted.
Correct.
You can no longer operate as if it's you're for, and no more.
That's it.
You're hired by the people to be servants of the people.
Yeah.
You're not hired to go to Parliament to make deals. You're not hired to go to Parliament to steal. You're not hired to go to Parliament to give, contracts to I always say this all the time, your family, your friends, and your hoes. That's not the reason why you were sent to Parliament. You were sent to Parliament as servants of the people. And so what I saw more than anything else is that the Democratic Party began to take the general populace for granted. They began to think that voting blocs would always vote for them, that the Hispanics would always be in their corner. It's just like the PLP and the FNM that thinks that over the hill will always vote for us. Baintown and Grantstown is ours all the time. No, beloved, the populace is changing. The votership is changing. And more than anything else, young people are waking up and they are becoming a huge part of the voting bloc. And so therefore, what you could have pushed down our parents or our grandparents' throats, the young people ain't having it. And so what I took away personally from the United States election is that, listen, people may be silent, but trust me, they are thinking, they are planning, they are preparing, and on election day, they are going to move on you. Now, see how all of us are dressed in red here? We are dressed. He that hath an ear to hear, I want you to hear what the Spirit is saying. So what we have to realize right now, what we have to realize and recognize, listen, something I want to say the other day, I saw, I think it was Guyana, was it? Guyana or Turks and Caicos? I think it was either Guyana or Turks and Caicos that gave stipends to their people. Y'all help me out a little bit. It was either Guyana or Turks and Caicos or both that was giving a form of relief monetarily to its people. My thing is, those two countries are as far as their wealth and as far as their financial standing is less than the Bahamas. So my thing is, if they can receive stipends, if they can receive payouts or help in this particular time, what about the Bahamas? What about Bahamians? And so I think also, one last thing, I think one of the main things that I took away from the U.S. election is that it's time to look out for your people. What Donald Trump said, the American First agenda. Yes. We are looking out for Americans first. Yeah. It's time for the government of the Bahamas to look out for Bahamians first. Yeah. And we need to deal with the immigration problem. We need to deal with it swiftly. And those that needs to be repatriated and sent back home, do it quickly. Just like how Donald Trump said he's getting ready to do mass deportations. Take note in the Bahamas government, because you got to realize that what happens in the United States, it's going to happen here in the Bahamas.
And I want to add too, for the moral compass. It means to have the ability to judge. All those Africa and all these other states are judging well. And what they're saying, Camilla, you're not for Americans.
Right.
They all, not just Donald Trump, but those who are right with God, morally right, are saying, this is not it. We can tell the plan makes no sense. It has no message. It is not full. It makes no sense. Those who are selfish will go after that. But the Americans said, we need a real president who will see our issues and speak and do to our issues. And America has spoke and has spoken.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, this was, I guess, perhaps only the second of its kind.
Absolutely.
Sort of historic comeback
Yes.
by a president. In fact, perhaps it's even more significant.
Yes.
And so it's being seen, Trump
The
is
greatest comeback in history.
Trump is being
Yeah.
hailed,
Yes.
as somebody who was ushered
the last
in
time it
this
happened, I
great
think they said
movement.
was 18 something, 1800
Yes, and so
something.
he's certainly being lauded for so much, and again, the support is coming from around the world.
Yes.
People feel hopeful. People feel hopeful, and governments feel hopeful for many different reasons that Donald Trump
necessary change has come.
Has been elected.
Yes.
And so, of course, we wanted to, many of you are so interested and so vested. We wanted to spend some time this evening, while obviously giving some analysis on the election and the results in the United States, talking about how it mirrors similar things. The same things we have heard them say are many things we're talking about: cost of living, inflation, values and family values, and so much more. And so certainly, of course, we will continue to have our own discussions here locally. The United States has decided that they are now moving forward. In the Bahamas here, there are so many things we have to address and get sorted out for our people. Particularly that shrinking middle class. It's hugely important and really critical to many people's survival. Quite frankly, the majority of the population survival. And so we'll continue to have those kind of conversations that matter most to you.
Yes.
Ladies, I thank you both very, very much.
Thank you so much.
I thank Mandel Miller and Michael Turnquest in the second segment at the top of the show, Ellington Ferguson, Leslie Miller, and of course, a big thank you to all of you this evening for tuning in. We certainly enjoyed having you along, and we look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow evening. For the entire Beyond the Headlines team, I'm Shanique Miller. Make it a great evening, everyone.